This is your no bullshit guide to a happier life. Quick, but not necessarily easy tips to help you to squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of your business and your life. My name is Helen Calvert. I'm a coach, a business owner and a parent, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I do swear occasionally, as the title suggests, so pop in your headphones if I'm not safe for little ears. Ready to go? Let's do this. Hello and welcome to this episode where we are going to be talking about going deeper, below our conscious mind, below the day-to-day, getting underneath our conscious merry-go-round of thoughts and getting a little deeper. There are so many different ways that humans have found to achieve that because it's so important to quiet some of the noise and figure out what's actually going on. But I have picked 3 particular ways that I have tried, that I have done myself. And those are floating, Yoga Nidra, and hypnotherapy. So what are these things if you haven't heard of them? I'm going to put a couple of links in the show notes to a Yoga Nidra practice that I did and to Float Level in Manchester, where I had a float just yesterday, actually, just before I recorded. But what are these things? So Yoga Nidra is an immensely powerful meditation technique. It's also known as yogic sleep. It's one of the easiest yoga practices because really it's meditating whilst being in Savasana, which is the corpse pose in yoga. So it's a really beautiful combination of yoga and meditation. Floating, if you are not aware of it, is exactly what it sounds like. It is floating in water, but rather than being in the sea or in a swimming pool, you are in a specifically designed flotation pod with very salty water with particular salts in it to aid flotation. So it's impossible to sink, basically, you float. And there are many other things about it set up to make it delightful and calming. And then hypnotherapy is using deep relaxation techniques to then speak directly to the unconscious mind and try to help with things that could be causing problems. So let's look a little bit deeper, going deeper, in fact, at each of those 3. How do they contribute to a happier life? Why would you do any of these things? Why would you look into them further? So I thought about this and I thought actually, as much as they all help you to go a bit deeper, for me anyway, they each do a slightly different thing. Floating, being in the flotation pod, taking that time to do nothing but float because you have no screen, you have no book, you have nothing. You are floating in water for an hour, potentially in the dark, but you don't have to be in the dark. But you're floating in the water for an hour, nothing else to do. So floating for me is about examining my thoughts, going a bit deeper and just being left with my thoughts. Yoga Nidra, the way I did it was with a guided Yoga Nidra meditation, which I think is probably one of the most common ways to do it. And for me, Yoga Nidra is about quietening my thoughts. So I'm not examining anything. I'm not going deeper to look at what's happening. I'm actually going into a deep relaxation to just quieten everything down, go beneath the merry-go-round of nonsense in my head. And then hypnotherapy, again, slightly different. It's about directing your thoughts. So it's about getting underneath the surface nonsense to actually make a change to something in your brain. So you may have heard of people using it to give up smoking or overcome phobias, which is something I've used it for. You may have heard of hypnobirthing, so that you can give yourself new perspectives on giving birth. I've used it for that as well. So it's about actually making changes. So they each contribute to a happier life because all of those things are important. Actually examining what we're thinking and figuring out what on earth's going on underneath the cyclical round and round of all the, surface stuff that we have in our heads all the time. And we may know that we're scared about something, or we're worried about something, or we're excited about something, or we're trying to figure something out, but we actually don't examine those things and get to the root of them or come to any kind of conclusion or solution because we're too busy with them going round and round with everything else. So the opportunity to really sit with our thoughts and examine them is an amazing contribution to a happier life. But so is the ability to quiet them down. Just let's take it down. Let's go deep. Let's relax, body and mind. Let's just quiet the whole thing, like a reset. If you imagine rebooting your computer, Yoga Nidra is a bit like a reboot for your brain, which I think we all need at times, don't we? And then hypnotherapy is a massive contributor to a happier life because it can actually solve some issues that you are feeling are unsolvable because nothing you have done with your conscious mind has made a difference. So it's like, let's go deeper. Let's get in there and actually rewire the thing, which, can make things much easier. With Yoga Nidra, I found it gave me the most amazing feeling in my body as well. Just that deep relaxation, which is what I experienced when I had hypnotherapy as well. Just a really deep feeling of relaxation that's beyond just vegging on the sofa or whatever. It's actually releasing so much tension, which we all need because we all carry around massive amounts of tension even when we think we're relaxing. So all of these things are just so good for letting go. Now, I want to move straight to the mindset block alerts here because straight away, I'm sure you're all thinking all kinds of different things about these options. So let's address some of them. Mindset block number 1. Yes, you do have the time to do these things. None of them take very long. The Yoga Nidra I did, I can't actually remember how long the practice was, but I don't usually do, and these are YouTube videos, or YouTube audios. I don't normally choose things that are much longer than 20 minutes, if that. I tend to look for things that are 10. So you do have the time. A float is an hour. Well, if you spend an hour in the gym, you've got an hour to float. Let's not pretend that time is holding us back, basically. You do have the time. The crucial thing is finding the inclination and believing that, as always, believing that you're worth doing these things to move you forwards. Mindset block number 2 is a big one though. It's what will we find if we go deeper? Now that is often a fairly hefty concern. We don't want to go deeper. We don't want to examine anything. We don't want to look properly. The more tense and stressed we feel, the less we feel inclined to look at that and examine it and really face it because we're scared of what we're going to find and we're scared of what the fallout will be. I've heard people say, if I start crying, I'll never stop. That's not true. You can't actually cry for that long, however hard you try. There's an exhaustion level that comes after a certain amount of time. But we're scared of what we're going to find. I'll tell you what you will find when you go deeper. With any of these techniques, you will find your needs. You will find that there are things you need in order to feel better, in order to overcome, in order to solve, in order to have more of this relaxation. You might think, oh my goodness, this is great. It turns out I need to do this more regularly. You will find what you need and what is really going on. And yes, that can be a big deal because then it's much harder to ignore that stuff. So you then might feel like, oh, now I have to do stuff. The doing is separate though. Let's get deep. Let's find out what's really happening. If there's things you then need to do, that's a separate step. And there are always people who can help you with the doing. I am one of them. Always check out the show notes because I am more than delighted to work with any of you if you want some help with the doing. But let's get deep first and let's find out what's going on in there, because ignoring our needs, not getting deeper, letting the stress mount up, not facing anything, it's toxic and it's going to come out. And if we don't face it and deal with it and dig it out and look at it, it's going to present itself as illness. And nobody wants that. So let's get it done. Mindset block number 3 is specifically about floating, because I think with the Yoga Nidra, you can imagine lying down, doing some deep meditation. That's not hard to picture. With the floating, if you've never done it, you may have a number of concerns. I will quickly try and address some of them. Think of it like having a bath. Start there, because it is something you do naked as well, which people are like, oh, but that's because they're imagining swimming. You're not swimming naked, you're having a bath, and you don't wear your swimming costume in the bath, right? I'm assuming not. So think of it like having a bath. You're going to a premises, like a place, and they have a number of bathrooms. And you will go into a bathroom and you will lock the door. So you'll be alone, like you would be in a bathroom. And inside the bathroom is a shower, probably a chair or a bench or something, and the flotation pod, which is like the bath. So you start off, they'll talk you through it if you've never been before. You start off and you have a shower. You get clean, and then you get into the flotation pod. Now, the pod is a decent size. I specifically checked yesterday when I had my float yesterday what sort of size it was, and I'm about 5'7", 5'8". I could touch above my head and below my feet if I reached my fingertips right above my head and my toes right down. Reaching my hands out, I could touch my fingers to the sides. Reaching my fingertips up, I could not touch the top. So that's how tall it is. And underneath my body, when I was floating, there was a hand's span from fingertip to wrist beneath my back to the floor of the pod. So that gives you just a quick idea about what dimensions we're talking about here. So you have a shower, you climb into the pod naked, and the idea is you then lay down on your back. There is usually something to put behind your head, just because we're not used to being able to float that easily. So we kind of feel like we need a head support, even though you don't. The idea is you then pull the pod closed and float. And there are lights, and you can have them on, or you can switch them off. If you switch them off, you're in pitch black, which I found really amazing, but you might not like. However, you are completely on your own, so you can do whatever you like. You can sit up if you wanted to. If you wanted to try this out, you can do anything you want. You can sit up. I certainly talk to myself. You can have a sing. I float around a little bit. I kind of push myself gently off one side to the other. I giggle to myself. You can do whatever you like. You do not have to lie there in silence and think, okay, I'm floating really hard. But I really recommend you give it a go. Just as a piece of reassurance, inside is the light switch, so you control the lights on the inside. You can open the pod at any time. It's all under your control. And yes, there is a little alarm button that you will never need, but it's there. So that's a whistle-stop tour of some of the fears you may have about floating. If you'd like to know more, please do let me know, or contact your local flotation premises, because they'll be so used to all these questions and they will tell you. But it is well worth a go, because it's just one of the most incredible ways of just meeting your own brain. Like, hi, here we are then. So what are the bullshit elements with all of these things? Well, I think really the real bullshit element is where hypnotherapy is concerned, because we've all heard about like hypnosis. You may have seen it on TV. That is all bullshit. With all of these things, you are 100% in control. Nobody makes you stay in a flotation pod. Nobody can take you deep enough that you can't control what you're doing. Nobody's going to take you deep without your consent. consent. Nobody's going to make you face a fear that you don't want to face. I think this is the most important thing, particularly about hypno, but also about these other ways of going deeper. You are always completely in control. And partly that's because, of course you are, because otherwise these things would be dreadful. But it's also because that's the only way that they work. This is about you and your mind. And any hypnotherapist will tell you that anything that is achieved has to be with your consent, because it doesn't work. Otherwise, that's not how it works. So, yes, there is no lack of control. There is no loss of control. You are the one directing proceedings. You are the one deciding how deep you go. These are just techniques for making it much, much easier to get there. So as I say, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of 3 particularly effective ways of getting deeper. I think it's something we all need to do on occasion. You know me, I'm not one for do it every week, do it every month, but on occasion, these are the things that are helpful. And particularly if you're struggling to stop doing or thinking something and you just cannot get past it, or maybe you don't fully understand it, hypnotherapy is an amazing tool. So, until next time, be excessively kind to yourself as you go deeper into your mind. And that is an amazing way of squeezing every last drop of enjoyment out of life. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. Did you know that my first book is coming out this autumn? Check the show notes for details of how to join me for my launch parties. I cannot wait to see you there. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are up. If you would like to work with me one-to-one or follow more of my content, you can find out how in the show notes. See you next time.